start by talking about researching and creating your college list. And this is something that you can do if you're a 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, you can do this now. Seniors, I hope that you have already started to do this. If not, that's okay. We can help you with that. But this is really one of the most pressing matters right now in your 12th grade year. So when you're making your college list, you can look several places. Obviously, we can't go to colleges in person, but you can research colleges online. So one of the places that I really like is bigfuture.collegeboard.org. You might recognize College Board. They're the people that created the SAT. They have this website that has this cool search engine where you can put in your preferences. So you can say, I want a public college in North Carolina that costs under this amount, or this is my GPA, and it will populate schools that fit your criteria. You can also go to schools' websites, just Google UNCG, and you can take a look around their websites. You can also speak to college representatives. So admissions offices hire a bunch of people whose job is to sit there and talk to you about their college. So feel free to make an appointment with an admissions representative, get them on the phone, ask them a little bit about their institution, what they liked about it, if they attended, and have your questions answered that you might not get answered on the college's website. You can also look at some virtual visits. So in April, May, our team met with over 50 colleges and spoke to college representatives, and we have this posted on our YouTube channel. They show some nice pictures of campus, answer our questions, so you can just Google Game Plan College YouTube and look at those there. Colleges have also posted virtual campus tours, so they walk around with a camera and tell you a little bit about their campus. You can look for those on YouTube and also uvisit.com. So as you are researching your colleges, you're going to be making a list. And we like to give you some metrics that you need to think about to make your list and different kind of schools you should be looking for. So we ask you to apply to 3 different types of schools. These are safety schools, match schools, and reach schools. So your safety school is a school where you're pretty sure you're going to get in. You can tell this by looking at your GPA. If you have an SAT or ACT score, you can look at that as well. You would be happy to go there. You're pretty sure you're going to get in. It feels like a safety. So those are 1 to 2 schools. Then you're going to apply to 2 to 3 match schools. And these are schools where your GPA test scores are around what they've admitted before, and you'd be really happy to go there. You think you have a pretty good shot of getting in. And then finally, you're going to apply to 1 to 2 reach schools. And these are schools where maybe your GPA and your test scores fall a little bit below what they typically admit, but you think that there's something really excellent about your application that will make you stand out. So you think you might have a shot at attending one of those reach schools. So when we're thinking about making a college list, you're going to think about match and fit. So what makes a good match? This is based on your demonstrated academic achievement. So when you're looking at colleges, you don't want to go to a college that is too hard, where you're sitting in class and you're like, I don't think this professor is like speaking my language, like I don't know what's going on. And you also don't want to go to a school where you can skip class every day and still get an A. I know that sounds amazing, but you're paying a lot for your education. So you want to make sure that you are getting the most out of the college that you attend. So a way that you can tell this is by looking at the average GPA of the admitted class prior to you and compare that to your own. If you have a test score, like your ACT score, you can look at that as well. But do note that test scores are optional for most colleges for this upcoming application cycle. So you can see here, we've put some North Carolina colleges in this chart. So, if you have between a 3.3 and a 3.6, these are schools that you might want to consider. And I'll leave this up for just a second if you want to take a screenshot. So the next thing that you're going to think about besides academic match is fit. And this is a little bit more fun. So what is going to make this college feel like home to you? So when you're thinking about fit, think about your high school, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. Think about where you live, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. Does this college that you're attending, does it have your major? If you want to become an athletic trainer, you're going to want to go to a college that has an athletic training program or major. Do you like the location of where the college is? So when I was applying to college, I knew that I liked living in a city. I'm from Charlotte. So I was looking at colleges close by the city. So I mostly looked in the Triangle area. Do you want a large school or a small school? I went to a really small high school. I didn't like it very much. I wanted to attend a large college. So that's why I looked at UNC. What's campus life? Do they have the clubs that you're interested in? Do you have any special dining or housing needs that this campus needs to accommodate for you? And then finally, how much financial aid are you receiving? So when you're thinking about financial aid, you kind of need to think 10, 15 years down the line. If you want to go to medical school, you know that you're going to have to take out a lot of student loans to go to medical school. So what kind of debt do you want to accrue in your undergraduate career? Because that's just going to be tacked on to your med school loans. If you are thinking about entering a profession that traditionally doesn't pay well or doesn't, have a super high salary, do you want to go into a lot of loan debt in your undergrad? Now, if you're thinking about being a hedge fund manager and you think you're going to make $200,000 a year, then that's a different conversation. Maybe you can take out more loans. So after Can everybody hear me? All right. So after you have thought about match and fit and you have made your college list, it's time to start preparing your application materials. So when you apply to college, there's a bunch of stuff that you have to include. So first is test scores. We'll talk about this in a minute. Letters of recommendation from teachers, personal statements. So this is your college essay, short answer essays if they're required, and then your residency determination service number. So starting with your test scores. For those of you who are seniors this year, if you're applying to public four-year colleges in North Carolina, the UNC system has suspended the requirement for SAT and ACT scores. That being said, they're still accepting them if you want to send them. So if you do have a score you want to send, feel free. Hopefully, if you're an underclassman and you're hearing this, we will be back to some sort of normalcy, hopefully by the time that you're applying to college. So maybe you will have had the chance to take the SAT or an ACT. So the SAT is scored out of 1,600. The ACT is scored out of 36. In a typical application cycle, when we're not all locked up in our homes, colleges require test scores. North Carolina has some minimum test scores that you need to meet to be able to even apply to four-year public colleges. So for the SAT, you need to have an 880, and the ACT, you need to have a 17. Colleges really don't care which test you take. They don't view one as better than the other. If you are planning on taking these tests multiple times, maybe take one of each and see how you feel. Hopefully you will still have the free ACT through your high school in your junior year when you get there. So the next piece is letters of recommendation. So colleges can look at your test scores, they can look at your transcript and see what kind of student you are. So, how proficient you are in English or science or whatever. But that doesn't tell them very much about who you are as a student. So what you're like as a classmate up here. So not all colleges and universities require these, but many do. And these are letters from your teachers and community members that speak to your character. One of them needs to be from a core class teacher. So this is social studies, English, science, and math. If you want to send more, you can send one from a core teacher and one from an elective teacher, or one from a coach or community member, someone who can really speak to who you are. You want to ask for these as early as possible. It is very obvious to colleges when teachers send their form recommendation letters. It's kind of bland and boring, and it doesn't help your case that much. So you want to make sure you give your teachers and your recommenders time to actually sit down and write you a really good recommendation letter. We suggest that you ask them in person or a personal email, and that when you ask them, you tell them when it's due, where they can turn it in, and also that you either send them a brag sheet or a resume. So a brag sheet is just a list of all the things you've been involved in. It might ask for your test scores, your GPA. Your schools often have form brag sheets that you can use, so ask your counselor about that. And then if you want, you can tell your recommenders maybe what you want them to highlight. So I know at Davidson College, they really look for students who are going to be good community members, because Davidson is really, really small. So if you're applying to Davidson, you could ask your recommender to, really punch up how great you are with your classmates and how much of a team player you are. All right, so the next and most important part of the application, in my opinion, is the essay. This is especially true now that you will probably not be sending test scores, or if you do, you'll only be sending one test score. So the essay is really important. And it gives the college an opportunity to learn about your voice and your story. Like I said, your transcript and your test scores and even your recommendation letters only tell them so much. So this is your opportunity to tell them about who you are. So our first piece of advice is show and tell, just don't tell. So if you say, Mary Beth was my best friend, like, okay, sure, but that's kind of boring. So you could say like, the first time we saw each other, we just knew that we were meant to be friends. We finished each other's sentences, blah, blah, blah. We share the same clothing. That tells me that you're best friends. You didn't have to say you were best friends, but it was a more interesting way of getting the same point across. So make sure that you are answering the prompt. So if the prompt is asking about a challenge that you faced, don't write a whole long essay about how you aced this test. That is not answering the prompt. I know you probably want to tell that story about how you aced that test, but make sure that you stay within the boundaries of what they're asking for. Be yourself. I think one of the biggest mistakes students make is that they write the essay that they think the admissions committee wants to read. So they say, oh, I was playing football and this guy threw me this pass and I caught it against all odds. It taught me a lot about life and achievement. Or, I thought this calculus test was going to be really hard, but I aced it. Sure, that might have happened, but is that the story you really want to tell about yourself to the admissions committee? So if you need help brainstorming, if you're worried that your essay might be a little cliched or run-of-the-mill, we're happy to talk to you about that and brainstorm some experiences that would be really interesting to these admissions folks. Make sure that you revise your essay. So this means reading it yourself multiple times. This means sending it to people you trust to read it. We can read it and work on your essay. You can make an appointment with us. You can send it to teachers, your parents, your friends. Another tip is Microsoft Word has a feature where you can have it read back your writing to you. And I've found that this helps me in sentences that maybe don't make a lot of sense read out loud that I thought made sense on paper. Or, sometimes you miss a word completely because you just weren't thinking about, this little word. So that will help you with things like that. So in addition to your long essay, You might have some short answer essays. These are kind of fun. A lot of them will ask you, why do you want to go to this school in particular, or what are your career goals? But some of them are more creative. So University of Virginia asks you what your favorite word is. They might ask you, what's your favorite novel and why? These are really important because, again, they give the admissions people a little bit of insight into who you are and the way you think, the things that you like. So don't skimp on these, even though they're shorter. And if a application says that this thing is optional, most of the time it's not really optional. If there's an optional essay and you think you have something else to share, share it there. The Common App now has a section for coronavirus related things that you can share. So if coronavirus has affected your life in some way that's affected your schooling, maybe your parent lost a job and you had to pick up extra shifts or things like that, there's a place to share that there. That's one scenario where if you don't really have anything to say, you don't need to say anything. There's also an additional information session where you can explain things. So maybe in 10th grade, a family member died and that really affected your grades. You can talk about that there. So those are two cases where that is optional, but optional short answers are not optional. So in addition to all of those things that the admissions committee is going to read, you also need to do your residency determination. So as of 2017, if you are applying to a public college in North Carolina and you want to receive in-state tuition, you have to file your residency form. So you can go to this website, ncresidency.org. You can use your CF&C username and password to log in. This form is actually pretty similar to the FAFSA, and it's going to ask you a lot about your parents' information. So it's going to ask about any property holdings, social security numbers or ITINs, where they live, things of that nature. So be prepared to answer those. After you file this form, you'll get a number called your residency certification number that can go on your college applications, and that will tell colleges whether you're in or out of state. With your residency certification number, you'll also get your residency determination. So after you file the form, it will tell you whether you have initially been deemed in or out of state. Keep an eye on your email, because after you get that initial residency classification, the system checks all of your information with state and federal records, and if they find that something isn't matching, they might change your status to out of state. You only have 10 days to appeal this, so you really need to watch your email in the couple weeks following your residency determination. There are some options for recourse. If you fill out this form and it tells you you're out of state and you're like, what are you talking about? I live in North Carolina, I qualify for this. And we can help you work through those things. We have a question, do you need to do residency determination to apply for out-of-state schools? No. So schools in other states, literally everywhere but North Carolina, they determine this in-house within their admissions offices. So schools might have their own processes for this. It's just in North Carolina that we have this centralized form. I do want to point out that if you are a citizen, but your parents are undocumented, you do qualify for in-state tuition, but the form is going to determine that you're out of state initially. So if that is the case for you, we can work with you to ensure that that is corrected. You just have to go through a couple other processes. All right, so once you have all of that stuff together, you've done your RDS, you have all your application materials together, you're going to apply to schools. So there are several places where you will find your college application. The first is the Common Application. This is a really nice place to house your application, because you only have to put in your information once, and it goes to all the colleges you're applying to that house their application on the Common App. There is one Common App essay. So your main essay will be the same for every school. You might have some supplemental essays for colleges here and there, but you only really need to write one big essay. The next place you might find it is the coalition application, and this will be for schools like UNC, NC State, Duke, and Davidson. And you can also look at cfnc.org if you're applying to a community college in North Carolina. The application will be housed there. And if you're confused and you're like, this is a lot of places to look, just go to the college's website and they will tell you where their application is housed. Here are the colleges in North Carolina that are on the Common App. So I'll just leave this up for a second if you want to screenshot. All right. So there are a couple different types of deadlines for your colleges. Get this all loaded. Okay. So there are two types of early deadlines, and these deadlines typically fall in the fall. We really encourage you to apply early because you might have a better chance of getting into the colleges, and also then you can have your spring semester to be a senior and have fun and not worry about applying to college. So there are two types of early application deadlines. The first is early decision, and this is a binding application, meaning that you are telling this college, hey, Duke, I really love you. I really, really want to go to you. If you admit me, I'm coming. You can only apply early decision to one college and university because if accepted, you are legally bound to attend that school. Public colleges don't offer this option, so this is only for private colleges. If you're thinking about applying early decision, make sure you talk to your parents and your college advisors or us at Game Plan College, because you will have not seen your financial aid package from that institution, and you want to make sure that that financial aid package works for you before you say yes. So the next type of early deadline is the early action deadline, and this is non-binding. So this does not include a legal obligation to attend the university. It just shows the college that, you know, really want to go to you, so I'm applying early. This is my favorite deadline. I think everyone should apply early action because you get it done, and then you still have until May to make a decision. So you'll get to see your financial aid award letter and compare between and see what works best for you. The next type is the regular decision deadline. So this typically happens in the early spring. This is the traditional and most popular deadline for applicants. It's very similar to early action. It's non-binding, and you have until May to make a decision. The final application deadline is called rolling admissions. So this means you can apply anytime, and you will likely hear very soon after your application is in whether you've gotten in or not, and these usually run into up until May. We have a question. If you're undetermined as to what you want to do after high school, should you still move forward with the application process? Yeah, so I think it's always good to give yourself some options. You know, you don't want to get to May and be like, oh my God, I actually do really want to go to college. I wish I would have applied. That being said, college applications are often not free. So you want to be careful about where you're applying. You don't want to waste a ton of money. So if you'd like to talk further about, you know, giving yourself some options, we're happy to do so. Community college applications are free. That might be a good place to put some applications just so you have options if you do decide that you want to attend college. So here's some early deadlines in North Carolina. As you see, we have some coming up, October 15th for UNC. And I'll just leave this here. Again, this is not, these are not all the deadlines. These are just the early. We have some regular decision deadlines over here, and this is only for a select few institutions in North Carolina. All right, so after you've applied to college, you will need to apply for financial aid. And you will do this through the free application for federal student aid that opens October 1st. So you can apply anywhere between October 1st and March 1st. That's the priority application deadline. You can apply after March 1st. However, it is not guaranteed that you'll get institutional financial aid if you wait until after. So the financial aid, or the FAFSA, essentially takes your parents' income, so it looks at their W-2s and their 1040s, and it says, okay, this is what you all make. Then it says, this is how much we think that you can pay for college, and this is called your expected family contribution. The range for this starts at 0, and there's no limit on the other side. So after you file the FAFSA, the financial aid folks are going to send your financial aid information to all the colleges that you say you want it to go to. So on the form, you'll say, I want this to go to UNC, NC State, blah, 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 whatever. Any school that you've applied to, because by that point, you probably won't know if you've gotten in. So after you fill out the FAFSA and the information goes to colleges, they're going to review it and they're going to offer you something called a financial aid award letter that says, here's the money that we're going to offer you to come to this college. So just a word of warning, when you get to the end of your FAFSA and you see a number, so maybe you see a 0, that does not equal what you need to pay for college. That just tells the financial aid offices at colleges and universities what the FAFSA thinks you can pay for college. So when you get your financial aid award letters from colleges and universities, there are a couple types of financial aid that you may see. So first, you might see grants. There is a federal grant called the Pell Grant that is up to $6,000 that you might see on your financial aid award letter. There might be institutional grants, and grants are money that you don't have to pay back. It is free money. They say, take it, we want you to go to college. Another type of financial aid is loans. So unlike grants, you have to pay loans back, and they also come with an interest rate. So there are 2 different types of loans. You might see an unsubsidized loan. This loan does not accrue interest while you're in college. So it ends up being cheaper than the other type, which is an unsubsidized loan, which will accrue interest. We're going to have a financial aid session on a Wellness Wednesday, so I'm just giving you the overview, but you'll get a lot more information about this later on. You might also see work study. So this is an agreement where you go work at an office at the college you attend, and they help you pay for college. And then finally, you might see Parent Plus loans. These are loans that you would take out with your parent. These tend to be higher than the loans offered just to you, and your parent must qualify with credit. We have a really good question. What happens if your monetary circumstances change drastically due to coronavirus? The FAFSA now has a question about whether your financial situation has changed since the last taxes you filed. You can also work with individual financial aid offices to make sure that they know what your situation is. So apply to the FAFSA early, give them all the information you can. When you get into colleges, contact their financial aid offices and say, here's the deal. What information do you need from me to make sure that my financial aid award letter is correct? Once you get a financial aid award letter, this is not a document that's set in stone, so you can work with financial aid offices if you think that what they've offered you is not reflective of your need. All right, so we talked a little bit about this. So like I said, when your financial aid information goes to colleges, they determine your financial need. So if your FAFSA says that you can afford $5,000 for college and the cost of attendance is $25,000, your financial need is $20,000. Not all colleges are able to meet full need, so not all colleges would be able to offer you that $20,000. There are some schools that can, so here are some examples: UNC, NC State, Duke, Davidson, and Elon. These schools require an additional financial aid application called the CSS profile. So if you are applying to colleges and you see this word CSS profile, make sure that you write it down that you need to send this to that college. It's really important. You should expect, if you have financial need, to see at least $5,500 in loans on your financial aid award letter. Unfortunately, loans have kind of just become a part of the college financing landscape. You can avoid them at some institutions, but at some colleges, it kind of just comes with the territory. So don't be afraid of taking out loans, especially federal loans. These interest rates are very low and they don't offer you a ton of money. We do caution you against taking out private loans because these loans have very high interest rates, meaning you end up paying a lot more than what you actually took out. And they're not regulated as closely by the federal government as federal loans. All right, so like I said, make sure if your college asks you to fill out the CSS profile that you do so. If a college asks for the CSS profile, it generally means that they're very generous with their financial aid, so it's a good thing. After you file your FAFSA, you may get selected for financial aid verification, and this is where the college is going to ask you to supply some more information so they can make sure that they're giving you the right amount of aid. If you are selected for verification, you need to address it pretty quickly, and we can help you with that. If you fill out the FAFSA and your EFC is 0, I would go ahead and expect to be selected for verification. They say it's random. In my experience, it is not random. So just take a note of that and keep an eye on your email. If you are an international student, if you are undocumented, North Carolina public schools cannot provide you in-state tuition, so you will be charged out-of-state tuition. You also will not be able to receive any sort of federal financial aid for college. If you are an international student or undocumented and you want to talk about financing options for college, we can do so with you. It's a little trickier, but there are some big scholarships that are available for international and undocumented students that we can talk to you about. If this is the case for you, the earlier you reach us, the better, preferably in your junior year, so we can get you ready to apply to these big scholarships come senior year. And then finally, after you've done all this, you've applied to college, filed your financial aid, you've looked at your award letters, you're going to make a decision. So make sure that you compare your financial aid award letters to make the best monetary decision for you and your family. And make sure that you do all the things you need to do to RSVP to that college. This typically includes paying an enrollment deposit, and the deadline for this in North Carolina is May 1st. For the schools that you decide not to attend to, for the schools where you decide not to attend, make sure that you tell them so they can open up that spot to someone else. And then here's a graphic that we have that is a rough timeline of when you should start doing all the things that we just talked about. So as you'll see, we are in September right now, so some scholarships are open and we're about to get into application season. So you should have your college list and you should be working on your applications now. All right. We would love to stay connected to you. Like I said, we are offering Wellness Wednesdays workshops this semester. If you would like to receive our newsletter, please go to this link and fill out our sign-in sheet. You'll say, yes, you're new to GPC this year. And then you'll be put on our listserv where you will get information about any workshops we're hosting, scholarships that we think are good to apply for, college application deadlines, tips for working on your essay and things like that. So it's a really valuable resource. And then finally, like I said, we'll be offering Wellness Wednesdays workshops every Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. If you have any questions, you can send us an email at gameplancollege@emilyk.org. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel or our Instagram. And then this is my email down here on the right if you have any questions for me. And I will drop the link to our sign-in sheet in the chat. Oops. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those now. You can ask them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask over audio.